Complete hypocrisy. Is hypocrisy the right word, or is it? Yeah, it's hypocrisy works. It's also ignorance and something blatant that would seem like a base question that never is ever asked. There's many assumptions already, not even things already assumed as a base starting point. There's a documentary called A Lamp in the Dark. And it was shown to me by somebody who basically said a bunch of racist shit against me, calling me a Muslim dog and I should be shot and everything like that. And I said, yeah, I'm actually Christian. He said sorry, and he sent me this movie, A Lamp in the Dark. You're right, A Lamp in the Dark. King James onlyists are also big on this, of what I'm going to say. A Lamp in the Dark. It's a documentary. And I'm going to explain why that it's not only factually untrue, like ancient aliens, but, or just ridiculous, but the people making it had to know that they were lying and doing it intentionally. Sorry, Betty's walking around. It talks about the Bible, like, the New Testament. How the New Testament was written as if it's, speaking of it as if it's like one book, right? That it was all written by the end of the first century. And then these evil church fathers come in and add things and start changing them. And these are the same type of people who will read a Jack Chick track or hear about that Alberto Rivera guy and say, oh, Islam was created by the Pope. And the reason they say that, they say the reason was to get the land of Israel back. From who? The Roman Empire had occupied it for since the friggin' 1st century BC. And the Roman Empire had already tolerated Christianity by 313. So these evil church fathers. Well, if you bother to actually read the church fathers, it's they who over the next 300 years defend and keep alive the 4 canonical Gospels, most of the works of Paul, Acts, the Apocalypse of John was heavily disputed, as was, and to this day, the Eastern churches will not read the Apocalypse of John in church because we don't know where it came from. One day, the people from the city of Rome, bishops from the city of Rome, brought it by, and we said, we knew John. He lived in Ephesus. We don't know that. Doesn't sound like him, and we don't. He was never on Patmos. We know where he lived. But these are the people that, 2 Peter, 2nd, 3rd John, Jude, James. It's funny because Martin Luther would dispute these same things about 1,500 years later. But they were the ones defending the gospel from the Judaizers and the Gnostics that believed that you had to get in through secret knowledge, that there was a secret passcodes, or that Christ really didn't have a flesh body like Marcionites, even though Marcion wasn't a Gnostic. And the Gnostics were elitists. You had to be male, celibate, live in the desert. This is why monasteries were very frowned upon at the beginning, when Christianity was tolerated. People, the church, the Catholic Church, which is what it was called at the time, did not like the idea of monasteries. But what does Catholic mean? Why was that term come up with? We first hear it from Ignatius of Antioch, who's writing in 105, who goes to his death. He was actually ransomed out of execution. And he said, no, take that money back. Don't give it to the pagans, the pagan Romans. Let me be martyred for Christ. And give that money to the poor. And it was Ignatius of Antioch that dubbed it Catholic. And why Catholic? Because you can see it right in Paul's work of Romans. Neither male nor female, rich nor poor, Jew nor Gentile, civilized nor barbarian. Catholic means universal. It's anybody, young or old. As well as the fact that there was no secret teachings among the apostles like the Gnostics taught. The gospel was universal for everybody, and the apostles universally taught the same gospel. No secret teachings. That's what Catholic meant and means. Unfortunately, many Westerners are ignorant, and immediately their mind jumps to some guy, a pope in Rome, claiming to be the bishop of the entire world, and purgatory and all this stuff. That was in the Middle Ages. That was in the late medieval period. That was not in the 1st and 2nd century, or even 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th. If you said Catholic, it just meant, you affirmed like the Trinity, and you believed Jesus died on the cross, or you accepted Paul's writings as being authoritative, or you thought, you didn't have to practice all of the Mosaic law in order to be saved. Things like that. But they attack the church fathers. And they had to have read them, but it's preaching to a people who have no idea who the church fathers were. Now, there are many people labeled the church fathers in the West that the church in the East does not consider church fathers. Origen, Tertullian, I can't think of the other ones. And they're not always good to read to just agree with them. As many times you'll disagree with them. Hell, Tertullian turned into a Montanist. There were ones that went off the deep end. They were jackasses. But Tertullian defends the true gospel against Marcionism and adverse Marcion. Irenaeus of Lyon defends the 4 canonical gospels against these secret teachings and these archons and other stuff. And you go down the line. And it's because of these men, many of which were tortured and martyred by the pagan Romans, that we get the 27-book canon. And it's so ridiculous. When you pick up the New Testament, wasn't it the church, the first 300 years, over 300 years of Christianity run by the church, that had the authority to compile this? That never crossed anybody's mind. They just think the 27 books came out hot off of a press all together, and that they didn't have to be assembled from all over parts of the Mediterranean.